The Chicago train station hums with chaos, but Jack Carver, a battle-scarred ex-soldier, spots her. A woman running, terrified, clutching a bag that holds a deadly secret, and when she drops a USB drive, one moment of kindness pulls Jack into a web of corporate lies, betrayal, and murder, where every choice could be his last. And the truth could cost everything, ready for a thriller that'll keep you on edge. Hit play, dive into this heart-pounding story, and subscribe to our channel. For more tales that grip your soul, don't miss what's next. The wind howled through Chicago's Union Station, carrying the sharp bite of a late October evening as commuters shuffled under flickering fluorescent lights, their footsteps echoing off the cavernous marble floors, a chaotic rhythm drowned by the screech of an arriving Amtrak train. And amidst the crowd, Jack Carver stood still, his worn leather jacket blending into the shadows of a pillar, his hazel eyes scanning the sea of faces with the instincts of a man who'd seen too many battlefields, a former Green Beret now 35. Discharged 2 years ago, haunted by memories of Kandahar and struggling to find purpose in a civilian world that felt alien, his calloused hands stuffed in his pockets, one gripping a crumpled VA appointment card he hadn't followed up on, the other brushing against a folded knife he carried out of habit. Not paranoia, or so he told himself. And tonight, like most nights, he was here to clear his head. The station's bustle a strange comfort, a place where no one asked questions. But then he saw her. A woman in her early 30s, auburn hair spilling from a loose ponytail, her navy coat too thin for the chill, moving fast, too fast, her eyes darting like prey, clutching a black messenger bag as if it held her life. And Jack's gut twisted, the old training kicking in. Something was wrong. She stumbled near a ticket kiosk, her bag slipping, hitting the ground with a soft thud, and a small object skittered out. A USB drive, unremarkable except for the way her face blanched, her hands trembling as she scrambled to retrieve it, glancing over her shoulder, and Jack caught a glimpse of 2 men in dark suits, lingering near a coffee stand, their postures too rigid, their gazes locked on her. Amateurs, he thought, but dangerous. And before he could look away, her eyes met his, wide with fear, a silent plea. "Hey," he said, stepping forward, his voice low, steady. "You dropped something." And she froze, her breath hitching. "It's nothing," she stammered, but her voice cracked. Betraying her, and Jack knelt, picking up the drive, his fingers brushing hers, cold as ice. "Doesn't look like nothing," he said, his tone calm but firm, and she whispered, "Please. You don't understand." Her words cut off as one of the suited men started toward them, his hand slipping inside his jacket. And Jack's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with clarity, the kind that came before a firefight. And he knew, whatever she'd dropped, it was trouble. The kind that didn't let you walk away. The wind howled through Chicago's Union Station, carrying the sharp bite of a late October evening as commuters shuffled under flickering fluorescent lights, their footsteps echoing off the cavernous marble floors, a chaotic rhythm drowned by the screech of an arriving Amtrak train. And amidst the crowd, Jack Carver stood still, his worn leather jacket blending into the shadows of a pillar, his hazel eyes scanning the sea of faces with the instincts of a man who'd seen too many battlefields, a former Green Beret now 35. Discharged 2 years ago, haunted by memories of Kandahar and struggling to find purpose in a civilian world that felt alien, his calloused hands stuffed in his pockets, one gripping a crumpled VA appointment card he hadn't followed up on, the other brushing against a folded knife he carried out of habit. Not paranoia, or so he told himself. And tonight, like most nights, he was here to clear his head. The station's bustle a strange comfort, a place where no one asked questions. But then he saw her. A woman in her early 30s, auburn hair spilling from a loose ponytail, her navy coat too thin for the chill, moving fast, too fast, her eyes darting like prey, clutching a black messenger bag as if it held her life. And Jack's gut twisted, the old training kicking in. Something was wrong. She stumbled near a ticket kiosk, her bag slipping, hitting the ground with a soft thud, and a small object skittered out. A USB drive, unremarkable except for the way her face blanched, her hands trembling as she scrambled to retrieve it, glancing over her shoulder, and Jack caught a glimpse of 2 men in dark suits, lingering near a coffee stand, their postures too rigid, their gazes locked on her. Amateurs, he thought, but dangerous. And before he could look away, her eyes met his, wide with fear, a silent plea. "Hey," he said, stepping forward, his voice low, steady. "You dropped something." And she froze, her breath hitching. "It's nothing," she stammered, but her voice cracked, betraying her, and Jack knelt, picking up the drive, his fingers brushing hers, cold as ice. "Doesn't look like nothing," he said, his tone calm but firm, and she whispered, "Please, you don't understand." Her words cut off as one of the suited men started toward them, his hand slipping inside his jacket, and Jack's pulse quickened, not with fear, but with clarity, the kind that came before a firefight. And he knew, whatever she'd dropped, it was trouble. The kind that didn't let you walk away. Jack slipped the USB drive into his pocket, his movements casual but deliberate, shielding the woman from the approaching suit, who slowed, his eyes narrowing, and Jack sized him up, 6 foot, mid-40s, cheap tie, probably ex-cop turned private muscle, the kind corporations hired for dirty work, and the woman, still trembling, grabbed her bag, her name tag glinting. Dr. Emily Voss, Northwestern Memorial Hospital, a doctor, not a fugitive, which made the drive's weight in his pocket feel heavier. "We need to move," Jack said, his voice a low growl, and Emily nodded, her fear warring with something else. Resolve maybe, as they wove through the crowd, the station's din swallowing their steps, the air thick with diesel fumes and burnt coffee, Chicago's pulse raw and unyielding, its skyscrapers looming beyond, the glass doors, a city of secrets built on steel and greed, and Jack knew its underbelly too well. The bars where vets like him drowned their pasts, the alleys where deals went sour, but Emily didn't belong here. Her world was sterile labs and patient charts, yet here she was running. And as they ducked into a quieter corridor near the baggage claim, Jack glanced back. The second suit was on their tail, radio earpiece glinting, confirming they weren't alone. "Who are they?" Jack asked, keeping his tone even, and Emily's voice shook. "I don't know their names, but they work for Nexapharm." The name hit like a stray bullet. Nexapharm, the pharmaceutical giant headquartered in Chicago, all shiny PR and whispers of unethical trials, and Jack's mind flashed to a buddy, Tommy, another vet who died last year, overdose on painkillers Nexapharm pushed despite FDA warnings. "What's on the drive?" He pressed, and Emily hesitated, her green eyes flickering with guilt. "Data, clinical trials, people died, and they're covering it up." Her words were a spark, igniting Jack's dormant sense of duty. But before he could push further, a janitor's cart rattled nearby, too close, and Jack's instincts screamed. He pulled Emily behind a vending machine, the suits passing inches away, muttering about the doctor and no loose ends, and Jack's jaw tightened. He'd seen this playbook overseas, eliminate threats, bury evidence, but this was home, and it stung deeper. Emily's breathing steadied, her fear giving way to defiance. "I was their lead researcher. I saw the numbers, the side effects, they ignored it." And Jack saw her arc shifting, not just a victim, but a whistleblower, risking everything, and he thought of his own failures, the missions he couldn't, save the lives he couldn't bring back. And something clicked. He wasn't just helping her, he was fighting for redemption, but the station wasn't safe, cameras everywhere, and Nexapharm's reach was long. Jack knew a guy, Marcus, a hacker, who owed him a favor, ex-army too, now living off-grid in Pilsen. If anyone could crack the drive, it was him. "We need to get out of here," Jack said, mapping the exits in his head, but Emily's hand gripped his arm. "If they find me, they'll kill me." And Jack met her gaze. "They'll have to go through me first," his words steady, a promise forged in the chaos of a city that never slept. Jack led Emily through a service exit, the heavy door clanging shut behind them, cutting off the station's clamor, and the alley outside reeked of garbage and motor oil. Chicago's underbelly bared under a flickering streetlight, their breath visible in the cold, and Jack's senses sharpened, every shadow a potential threat, the USB drive burning a hole in his pocket, its data a ticking bomb. And Emily kept pace, her fear palpable, but her steps resolute. "They've been watching me for weeks," she said, her voice low. "Ever since I copied the files," and Jack's mind raced, piecing it together. Nexapharm wasn't just sloppy, they were desperate. Sloppy meant mistakes, but desperate meant ruthless. and as they rounded a corner onto Canal Street, tires screeched, a black SUV peeling out. From a side street, headlights blinding, and Jack yanked Emily into a doorway, the vehicle roaring past too fast to spot them, but close enough to confirm they were hunted. "They've got resources," Jack muttered, his training kicking in. Assess, adapt, survive, and he needed answers. What's the drug, the one they're hiding? And Emily's face tightened. Virex, a new antiviral, supposed to be a miracle, but it's killing people. Liver failure, heart attacks. They fudged the trials to get it to market. And Jack's stomach churned, Tommy's face flashing again. Those pills. Virex was Nexa Farm's golden ticket. Billions at stake, no wonder they wanted her silenced. And the conflict wasn't just hers now. It was his, tied to the ghosts he carried. But the street wasn't safe. They needed to move. Marcus's place was a 20-minute L ride away, but public transit was a trap. Too many cameras, so Jack flagged a cab, the driver a grizzled old man who didn't ask questions. And as they slid into the back seat, Emily's phone buzzed, a text, unknown number. "You can't run forever, Dr. Voss." And her face paled. "They've got my number," she whispered, and Jack grabbed the phone, yanking the battery. "No signal, no trace," he said. But the message lingered, a taunt, and the cab wove through Chicago's neon-lit arteries, past dive bars and pawn shops. The city a maze of allies and enemies, and Jack's mind worked overtime. Nexa Farm had the cash to buy cops, feds, anyone, but they didn't know him, didn't know the lengths he'd go to. And Emily, she wasn't just a mark. She was a mirror, her fight echoing his own, to do right in a world that rewarded wrong. But as the cab pulled into Pilsen, a working-class barrio alive with murals and taco stands, Jack spotted a tail, a grey sedan, keeping distance but matching their turns, and his grip tightened on his knife. "We've got company," he said, and Emily's eyes widened. "What do we do?" And Jack's voice was steel. "We lose them," he told the driver to take a sharp left, the cab lurching, and the sedan followed, confirming his suspicion. The conflict wasn't just brewing, it was here. And Jack was ready to meet it head-on. The cab screeched through Pilsen's narrow streets. Jack's eyes locked on the rear view, the grey sedan still trailing, its driver cautious but persistent, and he leaned forward, slipping the driver a 20. "Lose them now," his voice calm but commanding, and the old man grinned, flooring it, weaving through traffic as horns blared, and Emily clutched her bag, her knuckles white. "Who else knows about the drive?" Jack asked, needing to map the players, and she hesitated. "My sister, Claire, she's a journalist. I told her enough to keep her curious." And Jack's jaw tightened. A journalist was a wild card, a loose end Nexa Farm wouldn't ignore, and this sister, Claire, was now a subplot, her role unclear but dangerous. And as the cab shook off the sedan in a maze of back streets, Jack's mind spun. Another layer emerged. Marcus the hacker wasn't just a contact, he was a brother-in-arms who'd saved Jack's life in Iraq. But Marcus had his own demons, paranoid, living off-grid, and trusting him with the drive meant gambling on his stability. And the cab pulled up to a rundown warehouse, its windows boarded. Graffiti sprawling like veins, Marcus's hideout, and Jack paid the driver, ushering Emily out. The night air thick with the scent of spray paint and distant barbecue. And inside, Marcus waited, a wiry 40-year-old with a buzz cut and a laptop, glowing in the dark, his eyes darting. "Carver, you bring trouble," he said, half joking. But Jack saw the twitch in his hand. PTSD never left. And Emily handed over the drive, her voice steady. "This is bigger than me, people need to know." And Marcus plugged it in, his screens flickering with encrypted files. "Nexa Farm's dirty laundry, huh?" "This'll take time," he said. And Jack nodded, but his gut screamed. Time was a luxury they didn't have, and outside a dog barked, sharp and urgent, and Jack peered through a cracked window, spotting movement, not the sedan, but a figure, in a hoodie, too still, watching, and the subplots were converging. Claire, the journalist, could be an ally or a liability, and Marcus's paranoia wasn't just nerves, it was survival, and Emily's guilt was its own thread. "I signed off on early trials," she admitted, her voice breaking. "I didn't know they'd bury the deaths." And Jack saw her conflict, ambition twisted into regret, mirroring his own. The missions he'd followed blindly, And the warehouse felt smaller, the walls closing in, and Marcus cursed, "This is military-grade encryption. They've got serious players." And Jack's mind flashed to Nexa Farms board, names tied to DC, to contracts he'd guarded overseas, and the figure outside moved closer, a glint of metal in their hand, and Jack's knife was out, his body coiled. "Stay here," he told Emily, slipping out to confront the shadow. And the night was alive with danger, every choice a thread in a web he couldn't fully see. Jack crept through the warehouse's side door, the cold steel of his knife steady in his hand, the Pilsen night alive with distant sirens, and the hum of a city that never slept, and the hooded figure lingered near a dumpster, their silhouette sharp against the sodium glow of a street lamp. And Jack's training took over, silent steps, breath controlled, closing the gap until he was close enough to smell cigarette smoke clinging to the stranger's clothes. And in one fluid motion he grabbed their arm, twisting it back, the glint of metal, a phone, not a gun, hitting the pavement, and the figure gasped, a woman's voice, "Jack, it's me, Claire." And he froze, releasing her, Emily's sister. Mid-20s, sharp-eyed, a reporter's defiance in her stare. "What the hell are you doing here?" He hissed, and Claire rubbed her wrist. "Emily called me, said she was in trouble. I've been digging into Nexa Farm for months." And Jack's pulse slowed, but his trust didn't follow. Claire was a variable, her presence a turning point, complicating the board, and back inside Emily's face lit with relief, then guilt. "I didn't know she'd come," she said, and Marcus, hunched over his laptop, snorted, "Great, more targets." His screens now showing decrypted files, patient records, falsified reports, and emails from Nexa Farm's CEO, Richard Hale, ordering containment of leaks, and Jack's gut twisted. Hale, a name he'd heard in military circles, a man with Pentagon ties, and the USB's truth was worse than he'd imagined. Virex wasn't just a bad drug, it was a weapon, tested on vulnerable populations, homeless vets, prisoners, and the cover-up went beyond Chicago, global, and Claire's eyes blazed. "This is my story, I can break it." But Jack shook his head. "You publish now, they'll bury you with her." And the warehouse shook, a low rumble, not thunder, but a vehicle heavy, pulling up outside, and Marcus killed the lights. "They found us," he whispered, and Jack peered out. 2 SUVs, black, 6 men spilling out, armed, not suits anymore, professionals, and the point of Virada hit hard. This wasn't just about saving Emily, it was about exposing a machine that chewed up lives, and Jack's past roared back every loss, every order he'd followed, and he saw his path, not just survival, but justice. "Marcus, back up the data now," he said, and Emily grabbed his arm. "You can't fight them all." But Jack's smile was grim. "Watch me," and Claire pulled a flash drive from her pocket. "I've got my own insurance." Hale's financials, offshore accounts, and the subplots aligned. Claire's digging, Marcus's skills, Emily's truth, all converging. But the men outside were closing in, flashlights cutting through the dark, and Jack's plan formed. Not a stand, but a trap, using the warehouse's maze of crates and shadows. "Get to the back exit," he told them, and as the first man breached the door, Jack moved, a ghost in the dark, ready to turn the hunters into prey. The warehouse erupted into controlled chaos, Jack's movements precise, a predator in his element. Disarming the first intruder with a swift strike to the wrist, the man's pistol clattering across the concrete, and Jack dragged him behind, a crate, zip-tying his hands, his pulse steady, the old rhythm of combat grounding him, while Emily, Claire, and Marcus slipped toward the back exit, the USB's data now backed up on Marcus's cloud, a digital lifeline, and outside, the remaining. 5 men fanned out, their radios crackling, unaware their point man was down, and Jack's mind worked fast, the consequences of Claire's arrival and the decrypted files shifting the game. Nexa Farm wasn't just after Emily, they were cleaning house, and Claire's financials added a new layer. Hale's money trail could cripple his empire, but only if they survived, and as Jack sabotaged a fuse box, plunging the warehouse into darkness, he heard Emily whisper, "We can't leave you," her voice fierce, and he hissed back, "You're the mission, go." And Marcus led them out, his laptop, clutched like a shield, while Claire lingered, her journalist's instinct warring with fear. "I've got a contact at the Tribune, we can leak this," she said, And Jack nodded. "Do it, but not yet." And the intruders' flashlights swept closer, their curses echoing, and Jack rigged a distraction, toppling a stack of pallets. The crash drawing them to the wrong corner, buying time, and outside the trio reached Marcus's van, a beat-up relic from the 90s, and as they piled in, Emily's guilt surfaced. "I brought this on you all," but Marcus cut her off. "Save the tears, Doc, we're in it now." His paranoia now a strength, scanning for drones, cameras, anything, and Claire was already texting her contact, cryptic, "Big story, need. Secure line." And the van peeled out, leaving Jack to face the fallout, and he didn't disappoint, taking down a second man with a chokehold. Silent, efficient, but the others were adapting, their leader barking orders. Find the drive, burn the rest, and Jack's blood ran cold. Burn. They'd torched the place, evidence and all, and he realized the stakes. This wasn't just about Virex. It was about erasing anyone who knew, and his own reaction shifted, anger replacing caution. These men were pawns, but Hale was the king, and Jack wanted him, not just for Emily, but for Tommy, for every vet chewed up by a system that profited, on pain. And as he slipped toward the front, he spotted a radio on the ground, snatching it, their chatter revealing a rendezvous point, a Nexa Farm lab in the West Loop, and the consequences crystallized. This fight was bigger than one night, one drive. It was a war, and Jack's resolve hardened. He'd get to that lab. But first, he had to survive. And as the intruders lit a flare, flames licking the crates, Jack sprinted for the exit, the warehouse glowing red, a beacon of the chaos he'd ignited. Jack burst into the Pilsen night, the warehouse ablaze behind him, its heat searing his back as he sprinted to a side street, the intruders' shouts fading, and he ducked into an alley, catching his breath. The USB's weight still in his pocket, a reminder of the fight ahead. And he wasn't the same man who'd wandered Union Station hours ago. Aimless, adrift, Emily's cause had rekindled something, purpose, not just survival. And he saw his growth. The soldier who followed orders was gone, replaced by a man who chose his battles. And this one was worth it. For her, for Tommy, for the truth. And miles away, Emily sat in Marcus's van, her hands steady now, her guilt morphing into resolve. "I can't hide forever," she told Claire, who nodded, typing furiously, her Tribune contact agreeing to a meet, and Marcus, his paranoia now a tool, routed. Them to a safe house, an old Union Hall where vets swapped stories, a place Nexa Farm wouldn't look, and Emily's arc shifted, from whistleblower to warrior, ready to face the fallout. And Claire, too, grew, her ambition tempered by the stakes. "This story's not just mine," she said, seeing her sister's courage, and Jack, checking his burner phone, got Marcus's text, "Data's safe, we're clear," and he felt it. A team, not alone. Wolf and his scars. The ones from war and loss didn't vanish, but they carried new meaning. Proof he'd survived to fight again, and he hailed a cab. Heading to the safe house, his mind clear. The lab in the West Loop was the next move. But he'd need them all, Emily's knowledge, Claire's reach, Marcus's tech, and his own grit. And as the city blurred past, Chicago's skyline a jagged promise, Jack knew he'd changed, not fixed, but focused, ready to dismantle a machine that preyed on the weak. And the growth wasn't just his, it was theirs. A shared fire forged in the night's chaos. The safe house smelled of stale coffee and linoleum, a cramped Union Hall in Little Village, its walls plastered with faded posters of labor strikes, and Jack slipped inside, greeted by Marcus's nod, Emily's determined gaze, and Claire's restless energy. The team now a unit, the USB's data their weapon, and Marcus had cracked more files, blueprints of Nexa Farm's West Loop lab, a fortress of glass and steel where Virex was made, and Jack studied the layout, his military mind mapping entry points, security blind spots. "We go in, get proof, get out," he said, his voice steady. And Emily added, "There's a server. Room it's got the original trial data undeniable." And Claire's contact at the Tribune was ready, a veteran reporter named Lena, who'd broken corruption stories before, but the lab wasn't a simple hit. Guarded by private security, cameras, biometric locks, and Jack knew the risks. Capture meant death, not just for them, but for the story. And Marcus rigged burners for comms, his hands steady despite the stakes. "I've got jammers for their cameras," he said, and Claire pulled strings, her contact leaking a decoy story to throw Nexa Farm off, a fake whistleblower in Seattle. buying them a window, and Emily prepped a dossier, her expertise shaping the data into a narrative no editor could ignore. And Jack, checking his knife, felt the weight of leadership, not just a soldier now, but a strategist. And the prep wasn't just tactical, it was personal. Emily faced her fear. "I'm done running," she said, and Claire hugged her, their bond stronger, and Marcus, usually distant, cracked a rare smile. We're the bad guy's nightmare, and Jack felt it, the climax looming, not just a raid, but a reckoning. And as they loaded into Marcus's van, Chicago's dawn breaking, the city's pulse synced with theirs, a fight for truth in a world that buried it. The West Loop lab gleamed under sodium lights, its glass facade a cold mask, and Jack led the team through a loading dock, Marcus's jammers scrambling the cameras, their comms crackling as they moved. Silent, synchronized, and inside, the air was sterile, humming with the low buzz of servers, and Jack's knife stayed sheathed, his fists enough for the lone guard, knocked out and zip-tied in seconds, while Emily guided them to the server room, her memory of the lab's layout flawless, and Marcus hacked the biometric lock, his laptop a lifeline. "We're in," he whispered, and the door hissed open, revealing rows of blinking servers. The heart of Nexapharm's lies, and Emily plugged in a drive, downloading the raw trial data, her hands steady. But the alarm blared, red lights flashing, their window closing, and Jack's voice cut through. "Move fast," as footsteps echoed, security converging, and Claire, stationed at the exit, hissed over comms. "3 guards armed coming your way," and Jack rigged a smoke grenade from a maintenance closet, clouding the hall, buying time, and Marcus's screen showed 80% complete, then 90, and Emily's. Eyes met Jack's, a shared resolve. This was it, the truth or nothing, and the download finished. But the guards broke through, gunfire erupting, and Jack dove, shielding Emily, his body a barrier. And Marcus fired back, a pistol he'd kept hidden, and Jack tackled a guard, disarming him, the fight brutal, close quarters, his training a blur of muscle and instinct. And Claire's voice screamed, "Van's ready, go!" And they sprinted, data secure, but a final guard blocked the exit. His gun raised, and Emily, not frozen, threw a fire extinguisher, stunning him. And Jack finished the job, a clean knockout, and they piled into the van, Marcus flooring it, the lab shrinking in the rear view, Chicago streets swallowing them. And the climax wasn't just the escape, it was the victory. The data in their hands, Nexapharm's secrets exposed, and Jack's heart pounded. Not with fear, but triumph. They'd done it together. The van sped through Chicago's dawn, the skyline glowing gold, and Jack leaned back, the USB and server data safe with Claire, who was already emailing Lena at the Tribune, the story set. To break by noon, and Emily's face, bruised but unbroken, held a quiet strength. "People will know," she said, and Jack nodded, his own ghosts quieter now, Tommy's memory not avenged but honored, and Marcus, pulling into a new safe house, a friend's garage in Logan Square, cracked a beer. To screwing the man, he toasted, and they laughed, a release of tension, and the conclusion wasn't just the data, it was them, a team forged in fire. And Claire's phone buzzed, Lena confirming the story was live. Nexapharms. Stock tanking. Hale under investigation, and Jack felt it, justice, not perfect but real. And Emily hugged Claire, their bond healed, and Marcus offered Jack a job. "We could use you." And Jack smiled. Maybe he'd found his place. And Chicago, their battlefield, now felt like home. Its chaos a canvas for their win, and the happy ending wasn't a fairy tale. It was hard-won, grounded. The kind that left scars but lit a fire for the next fight. 3 months later, Jack stood outside a VA clinic, his appointment card finally used. Chicago's winter biting his scars, and Emily's testimony had buried Nexapharm, Hale in cuffs, Virex pulled from shelves, and Claire's Pulitzer buzz filled. Her texts, her bond with Emily stronger than ever, and Marcus, still paranoid, was building a vet-run cybersecurity firm, Jack his first hire, and the USB, now a relic, sat in a safe, a reminder of the night they'd changed the game, and Jack's phone buzzed, Emily's name, coffee, and he smiled, heading to meet her, the city's pulse steady, their fight not over but won for now. If this story gripped you, hit that like button and subscribe for more tales of grit and truth. Share your thoughts below. What would you do with a secret that could topple giants? Drop a comment, share with friends, and join our community fighting for what's right. Check out our merch to rep the underdog spirit, and stay tuned for the next story, where one choice changes everything. Let's keep the fire burning.